We were born into a world made of paper, plastic, and glass. Everything we owned had weight and a permanent physical place. Music required pressing down real buttons with real force. Calling a friend meant stretching a coiled phone cord across rooms. Our news arrived folded, ink-stained, and slightly damp at dawn. Photographs lived inside shoeboxes under dusty bedroom beds. Memories were rare because capturing them required effort. Nothing disappeared into clouds or invisible distant servers. If something broke, we heard it shatter loudly. If something ended, it ended without notifications. Even our entertainment came in bulky plastic cases. We judged movies by their cover art alone. Friday nights meant choosing carefully because choices were limited. Rewinding before returning was a shared social rule. Even television schedules controlled when stories could unfold. If you missed it, you simply missed it. Information lived inside thick encyclopedias lining wooden shelves. Research required effort, patience, and physical page-turning. Maps unfolded like fragile puzzles across car dashboards. We rewound our stories manually before watching them again. There was silence between moments, and it stretched wide. We stared at ceilings longer than we stare at screens now. Long car rides meant counting trees and watching clouds drift. Boredom was uncomfortable, but it quietly built imagination. With nothing to scroll, we were forced inward. Our thoughts echoed without interruption or digital distraction. Waiting for friends meant trusting they would simply arrive. If they didn't, we just rode home. We memorized phone numbers instead of saving them. Getting lost felt like mystery, not malfunction. Afternoons stretched endlessly without constant interruption. The ticking of clocks felt louder back then. Waiting rooms had nothing but outdated magazines. We read whatever was available without complaint. Long lines meant staring ahead or studying strangers quietly. Car rides became silent movies through dusty windows. We counted passing trees to measure distance. Sometimes we simply watched clouds reshape themselves. Boredom forced our imagination to invent entire worlds. A stick could become a sword or spaceship. A cardboard box transformed into castles and submarines. Entire universes were built without electricity. No notifications interrupted our imaginary adventures. No glowing screens pulled our eyes downward. We learned to sit still with uncomfortable quiet. That quiet slowly strengthened something inside us. Patience became invisible but powerful muscle memory. Anticipation made rewards feel dramatically larger. Even small surprises carried enormous emotional weight. The streetlights turning on meant the day was officially over. Then one afternoon, a strange beige machine appeared. It hummed quietly like something from another planet. The screen flickered alive with cold blue light. We leaned closer, unsure what we were witnessing. The modem screamed like metal scraping metal. And suddenly our house connected to something unseen. The world felt larger and smaller at the same time. We could speak to strangers without leaving our bedrooms. Yet our bikes still leaned against the garage outside. We belonged to both worlds at once. After school, we ran outside before logging online. Play happened first, screens happened later. Our friendships formed in person before migrating digital. We knew each other's houses before knowing usernames. The transition wasn't sudden, it crept quietly forward. Phones grew smaller, screens grew brighter, days grew faster. The silence between moments began shrinking noticeably. Waiting slowly transformed into checking constantly. Boredom became something we tried to escape. And the analog world began slipping quietly behind us. At first, the internet felt like a secret doorway. We entered quietly, unsure who else was inside. The digital world had no smell, no weight, no gravity. Yet it pulled us in with invisible magnetic force. Afternoons outside slowly shortened by a few quiet minutes. Then those minutes quietly stretched into entire evenings. Dinner conversations competed with the sound of typing. We began living double lives without fully realizing it. Outside, we were loud and physical and messy. Inside, we became usernames floating without faces. The shift felt harmless, even exciting at first. We were pioneers stepping into unmapped territory. No one warned us what permanent connection might cost, because no one had ever lived like this before. In the 90s, everyone watched the same shows together. Monday mornings meant shared laughter about the same episode. We lived inside a single, shared cultural moment. The internet quietly shattered that shared rhythm. Suddenly, everyone began consuming something different. The school bus conversations became fragmented and smaller. Inside jokes stopped being universal across entire classrooms. Culture stopped broadcasting and started narrowing into niches. We no longer gathered around one glowing screen. We scattered into personalized digital tunnels instead. It felt empowering to choose our own content, but it quietly dissolved shared national moments. Even music became something we experienced alone. Headphones replaced living room speakers. Conversations moved from sidewalks to glowing screens. We were still together, just increasingly apart. Our attention began dividing into smaller and smaller pieces. Multitasking felt like evolution instead of fragmentation. Focus became something we switched on and off. Silence became something we filled immediately. The habit of checking began forming quietly. Waiting transformed into refreshing and reopening. Patience slowly lost its sharp edges. Anticipation shortened into immediate expectation. The space between desire and reward collapsed inward. And we adapted faster than we understood. We remember the before and the after clearly. Younger generations will never know that silence. Older generations never learned this digital language. We stand awkwardly in the middle of both worlds. Fluent in paper maps and glowing navigation screens. Comfortable in silence, yet restless without stimulation. Able to focus deeply, yet tempted constantly. We are both patient and perpetually distracted. The bridge generation between wait and weightlessness. The last to remember life before permanent connection. And that memory shapes how we move today. We still crave the quiet we once resisted. We miss boredom more than we expected. We miss the friction of real waiting. Because friction created texture inside our memories. Smooth convenience removed something we cannot quite name. The analog world had edges and resistance. The digital world feels endless and frictionless. We learned to survive in both environments. But we were shaped first by the heavier one. That weight still anchors us quietly. Even as everything else accelerates forward, we remember a slower version of ourselves. A quieter mind inside a louder body. And a quieter world outside our windows. That world is gone, but not erased. It lives in our habits and our contradictions. In our discomfort with endless scrolling. And our strange comfort with silence. We are not fully digital and never fully analog again. The biggest change was not technological, but neurological. Our brains adapted to constant incoming signals. Notifications replaced the sound of wind through trees. Silence began to feel like something missing. We grew accustomed to tiny bursts of stimulation. Micro-rewards scattered throughout every waking hour. Our focus fractured into manageable, moving pieces. Long attention became something we had to relearn. We can still do it, but it feels heavier. Like lifting a weight we once carried easily. Before the internet, memory was imperfect and private. We forgot details, and that forgetting shaped us. Stories changed slightly every time we retold them. Memory was flexible, almost alive. Then cameras became constant and effortless. Moments turned into files before they became feelings. We started remembering through screens instead of senses. The archive replaced the imperfect human mind. But perfect records do not feel like living. They feel like watching yourself from outside. Social validation became visible and measurable. Approval arrived in tiny bursts of light. Popularity stopped being local and became global. Comparison expanded beyond neighborhood boundaries. We began measuring ourselves against impossible standards. Childhood insecurities gained an international audience. Yet we adapted because adaptation is survival. We learned digital manners and invisible rules. We learned to curate ourselves carefully. Identity became something we edited constantly. The internet connected us, but thinned our solitude. We forgot how to sit with discomfort quietly. Silence began triggering the urge to reach outward. Boredom transformed from opportunity into threat. We filled gaps before they could widen. Even moments of rest carried digital tension. Sleep itself became lighter and more fragile. Yet something resilient remained inside us. We still remember the weight of unplugged afternoons. We know what it feels like to disconnect fully. That memory gives us perspective younger minds lack. And perspective is a quiet kind of power. We understand that speed is not always progress. And connection is not always closeness. We have lived in both climates of human attention. The slow and the immediate. The grounded and the weightless. The remembered and the recorded. That duality defines us quietly. We are translators between two eras. and interpreters for children born fully connected. We carry analog memories into digital futures. That inheritance is invisible but profound. It shapes how we value presence and how we guard our remaining silence. Even as the world grows louder, we remember a time before the noise, before constant connection felt mandatory, before identity required continuous performance, before childhood became content. That difference lives quietly inside our generation. It makes us nostalgic and cautious at once, grateful for technology, yet suspicious of its cost. We have seen what came before acceleration, and we feel what came after it. That tension shapes how we move through life. Half nostalgic, half adapting, half grounded, half floating, entirely shaped by the transition itself. The last analog childhood echoes within us still. Despite everything, we did not lose ourselves entirely. We kept our ability to sit quietly sometimes. We kept the memory of unplugged afternoons. We kept the patience learned from waiting. We kept the understanding that silence has texture, and that boredom can spark unexpected brilliance. We learned creativity without constant reference. We learned friendship without permanent documentation. We learned presence before performance. Those lessons still shape our instincts today. We are translators between two cultural climates. We explain rotary phones to children and privacy settings to our parents. We remember maps folded across car dashboards, yet we navigate cities through satellites overhead. We once memorized phone numbers by heart. Now we barely remember our own. We once knocked on doors without warning. Now we text before entering any space. We understand both rhythms instinctively. The world will never slow back down. Technology will only grow lighter and faster. Children born today will never know dial tones. They will never wait for film to develop. They will never hear a modem scream. And that is neither good nor bad. It is simply different. But difference changes how minds are formed and how memory feels inside the body. We carry analog memory like a hidden accent. It shapes how we pause before reacting. It shapes how we value undistracted conversation. It shapes how we protect our attention, even when the world demands constant response. We remember being unreachable sometimes. And strangely, that felt safe. There was comfort in temporary invisibility. Now invisibility feels almost impossible. That tension defines our generation quietly. We are both connected and nostalgic, both fluent and cautious, both adaptable and anchored. The last generation to remember before, and the first to fully enter after. That position is rare in human history, and it gives us perspective worth protecting. We can teach slowness in a fast era. We can model presence in distracted spaces. We can preserve texture in a frictionless age. Because we remember texture intimately. We remember waiting for something meaningful and earning it slowly. That rhythm still echoes in our bones. Even as algorithms try to quicken everything, we can choose which tempo to follow. That choice is our quiet inheritance. The last analog childhood still lives inside us, not as regret, but as grounding, not as rejection, but as balance. We are the bridge between wait and weightlessness, between silence and signal, between memory and archive, between presence and performance. And we will always carry both worlds, the world before the web, and the world shaped by it. That dual memory is our signature, our contradiction and our strength. The last analog childhood was not an ending. It was a bridge into everything that followed. Please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment the next video topic in the comments.